So with that out of the way, onto the story. Both in the book and TV series, the basic plot begins the same way, with the disappearance of a teenage girl called Alison. The difference in the books is that Alison doesn't keep returning when her friends are in conveniently confused states, which makes them question whether they've really seen her or not. Both storylines follow the lives of the girls left behind, Aria, Spencer, Hannah and Emily, as well as other secondary characters who Alison had tormented before her disappearance. Because although she was popular before she went missing, Alison was not a nice character and seemed to have gone out of her way to upset people, both friends and enemies. Alison would find out secrets about people, or even create them, and then she would hoard these and use them as sticks to beat her friends with on the sly. Whereas with her enemies, she would criticise and mistreat them more openly. And then one day during a sleepover, she disappears in the middle of the night. Surprisingly, people seem upset by this, because considering her behaviour to, well, everybody, you'd think they'd have thrown a party. And that's when the fun starts. A is born, and A wants revenge. A wants the girls to pay for something. For what is never quite clear. In both storylines, the reasoning behind the person who plays the first A did kind of make sense. And if the story had ended with that revelation, it would have been plausible and wrapped up fairly neatly. But this is the point that the stories diverge more clearly, because the first A in the books died, and I mean real died, not died but mysteriously reappeared years later, Dirty Den style, as so many of the characters seem to do in the television series. In the television adaptation, she survived and instead went into a psychiatric hospital because, well, best place for her, let's be honest. Original A then became a questionable ally and on-off suspect through the rest of the TV series. But somebody else by then had stolen the game from Original A and became A+. And this is where plausibility was stretched. And this is also the point where the spoilers really kick in. So if you haven't seen all the episodes and or read all the books and you wish to do so, you need to click out of this video now. So now we have A number 2, and the second A is the more savage and means business version of what the original A began, to make the girls suffer. But that's where I have the problem, because once everything was revealed, it turned out that second A had nothing to blame the girls for, not really. The things that second A was angry about were the things that she caused herself. She wanted to torture the girls because Alison was missing, but A, it was her fault. B, she knew Alison wasn't really dead anyway, so why was she trying to find people to blame it on? She could have just looked in the mirror. Yes, I get that she had psychiatric issues, but she was not under any illusion that Alison was really dead. They'd been in contact after Alison went missing, so why shouldn't she just find a way of letting her sister know it was safe to return home, even if she didn't tell her why and how she knew? She was meant to be a genius, I'm sure she could have come up with something. C, if she wanted to avenge Alison's imaginary death, why did she start threatening the very person she'd supposedly been intent on avenging in the first couple of series before she was finally revealed to be alive? D, so many people turned out to have known about this inexplicable vendetta that she had against the girls. How was it possible to keep it a secret for so long? Yes, I know she was some sort of mathematical savant who stockpiled horrendous fortunes to fund her torture of 4 schoolgirls, but still, her own mother knew it was her and didn't say anything. So the story of second A turned out to be more tragic and tear-jerking than the original A story, and provided questionable motives for all she'd done, apparently. But as much as you can almost empathise with her desire for revenge, she seems to have left alone the people who really deserved it. In other words, her parents. Her father for rejecting her, and her mother for going along with it and pretending that she didn't exist to everybody else. But instead she tortured 4 girls she didn't really know, as well as the sister she supposedly cared about. And yes, I get she had issues, but surely even if she was hooked on revenge, it would have made sense to start with the people who actually did something wrong. And then to realise that even though you'd run out of deserving victims, you were addicted, and then pick victims based on arbitrary imagined wrongdoings. But despite her lust for vengeance, she somehow managed to form deep bonds with some people with no real reasoning given as to why them and not the others, other than the fact the shows wouldn't have been made if she'd just embraced family completely once she was free to do so. But she did so selectively, and in the process became the driving force for A number 3 after she was killed. You might have thought that 2 crazed, revenge-ridden stalkers was enough for one lifetime, but the girls weren't going to get off that easily. Despite the fact that by this time they'd grown up, left home and started their careers, Stalkergate wasn't over. And A number 3 wants to know who killed A number 2, because although A is everywhere and all-knowing, she apparently didn't know that. So once again the girls, by now women, are on the A merry-go-round, and this A is even more brutal and has even less motivation for wanting to torture the girls than the second A did. A number 3 didn't even know them until she randomly happened to bump into Wren, the ex of Spencer and her sister Melissa, who turned out to have known A number 2 and number 3 and had, you guessed it, even less motive for revenge than either of the A's. And he went along with all this bizarre behaviour and never once spoke up or made any effort to get them to stop. Or at least, you know, get them help, being a doctor and everything. So the motivation issues aside, another problem was the fact that so many people were recruited at one time or another onto the A team that it begs the question, how did either of the A's manage to stay a secret? Too many people knew and too many people had been persuaded or forced to play a part in the torture game. It became like conscription. Even the torture victims themselves had at times been roped into playing, but so many seemingly sane-ish, for Rosewood, people had seen A number 2 and A number 3, how come none of them said anything? Nobody thought, hang on, that's a bit much. And it dragged on for nearly a decade. Isn't time meant to be a great healer, especially when the people that you're getting revenge on never really did anything to you in the first place?